couple of months ago, I picked up this Mini R56 John Cooper Works as a non-runner, and with no mechanical experience, I set about tearing down the engine and rebuilding it with the hope of getting this car back on the road again. I've replaced piston rings, timing chain, conrod bearings. The list for the parts that I've put on this car just seems to be endless. And after finally finding something that was a huge fault on the car and putting all of these parts back on, we're now getting somewhere. But even though the car was running the best it ever has, when I took it for its MOT, there were more problems. I've just picked up the car from the garage, and this white piece of paper that I have in my hand is the MOT document. Let's get a coffee and we'll get into it. Right, let's get on with the MOT. So it failed on two things, which, to be fair, isn't bad after all the work that I put into it. Engine rebuild, first time ever. To only have two failures was actually quite a good thing. The two things it failed on was windscreen washer not working and suspension arm pin or bush excessively worn near side front. Now, it does also say to monitor and repair, if necessary, the near side suspension arm pin or bush. So next steps for this car are now to order and fit suspension arms for the offside and the near side, fix the windscreen washer, and then we should be good to go for a retest. So I finished my brew and then we'll crack on with the job. I have spent so much time trying to get this car back on the road mechanically, fixing everything after the teardown and the rebuild, that I totally dismissed the interior altogether. As you can see, it is disgusting. So it's time to get to work on those seats. They came out first. I got the Vax on it, give it a wet Vax, trying to get all them stains out, all the crud and the grime. The interior was full of mold, so I'm just trying to do the best job I can. We move on from doing that and I stick a little bit of dubbing on the leather, trying to bring it up a little bit, trying to get that leather looking as best as it can. These seats are transforming into something that looks really good. With a little bit of TLC and a little bit of time, look at that. That looks fantastic. I can't wait to get these back inside the interior. However, that needs a good going at first. I know the old saying is you can't polish a turd, but I'm trying here. The handbrake cover is coming off to try and get rid of as much of the scum on the inside of that car. Oh, that's disgusting. Even the seatbelts couldn't hide from the mould, but with a bit of Dettol and a good rub, we got them back to looking brand new again. After giving the car a good hoover inside and in the boot, and getting rid of all the scum and the crud, it was time to look at them plastics. I'm using a Maguire's cream on this. You just put it on the cloth, give it a rub in, let it soak in, and it brings up the plastics fantastically. I've done the inside as well as the outside of this. Is really good stuff. That has come up looking amazing. It's now time to put the front seats back in, which are sat on rails. A bolt goes in either side at the front and also in the rear. That's the driver's side seat secured to the chassis, and it's now time for the passenger side. As you can see, it was getting dark, so the next day we come back and I'm trying to get into this boot. You can obviously hear I'm having a few problems. So it's not working on the button. However, when I lock it and open it again and then use the button opening key on the fob, Finally managed to get in. I have a problem with the boot. You can't open it from the outside. That, don't know what's going on there. There's no resistance. So it turns out that button on the boot, that's broken. So I'm taking that whole panel off. I then have to take the white painted piece off that panel, remove the same from the black car, and it's a quick swap, put it back on, and it worked perfectly. The last thing on the interior that I didn't get round to doing was the steering wheel. It's kind of an Alcantara finish with leather, and that Alcantara was just flat all around, so I'm trying to bring those fibres back out. I've just had a little go on here with this brush to try and bring some life back into this steering wheel. We have actually got fibres on there. They get stuck with all the oil and grease off people's hands. It's more the oils and stuff. But there's a good way of doing this. So I've got a bit of demon fabric and a brush. We spray the fabric clean up onto the brush, and then we give it a little rub. Now there's a lot of fibres it looks like coming out, or is that muck? Okay, I'll carry on and then show you the finished article in about 3 days. Look at that, sick. Some will say you've gone over the top, but it'll dry. Again, another transformation. When I first got this, it was disgusting. Everything was all flat. Now, with a bit of time and care, that looks amazing. This is what I'm not looking forward to. I've seen a few videos, people taking the front end off. I mean, I might take the bumper off anyway because there is a piece missing on the bumper when we got it. It was cracked off, which is this. Now this piece usually sits up against the wing of it in there. As you can see, ours is missing. So I have got some fiberglass coming today. I'll probably take that off whilst we're in there. Put that back together so at least that's strong enough to hold, and then... So I've got the wheel arches off, wheels off. The control arm's disconnected there. We disconnected it there. We managed to get a bolt out here. We are not going to get that off without dropping the subframe. So with the decision made to drop the subframe, you take the bolt off the steering rack on the inside, release that, and then it's onto the outside. And we'll take that off there. And that one off as well. I know I'm now going to have to take these out and a drop link out. Try and get the control arms done. However, that was not going to be done on the vehicle. So the subframe's coming off. I've unbolted everything. You can see it's quite a way down already. I'm just now checking that we haven't got anything attached that shouldn't be attached. Everything's out of the way, and we can hopefully get this subframe down and out. So I've checked everything, all the bolts are off, all electrical wires are now disconnected, and it's now just dropping that subframe down, making sure that I'm not catching anything. And with a little help, I managed to get it dragged out so we can finally get to them control arms. Anybody that's ever worked on cars knows that the grinder is going to come out at some stage. There was a drop link with a nut that didn't want to come off. It did with the grinder though. Next up, we're on to the subframe. I thought I'd give it a clean first. It was, again, absolutely disgusting. It's been on there literally 16 years. Actually came up quite well with a good clean. Once we've got that done, we can finally get those suspension arms off. The suspension arms are held in place by 2 bolts that go in through the anti-roll bar, through the suspension arms and into the subframe. Once those bolts are out, I can now remove that suspension arm, ready for the upgrade. With the new suspension arm going on, it's putting them bolts again back in top of the anti-roll bar, through the suspension arm, the subframe, and bolting them down. Now that everything's bolted back onto the subframe, with a little help of my elders, it's time to manoeuvre that subframe back underneath the car, ready for the next day because I'm running out of time to get that hitch back up onto the body. Okay, and we are back. Right, okay, it's the day after the night before. Yesterday, I spent a good few hours getting the subframe off, which is down there. I'll quickly show you what has been going on. So, rear control arm, that's your rear bush, rear control arm, lower control arm. This came as new with obviously the new joint over here. These were the problem area. And to get to these, which by the way, if anybody ever tells you, oh, you can do it without taking the subframe off, you can't. Right? Because these are torqued to 56 Newton meters and then 90 degrees. You have no chance of getting them off in situ. Not having it. Not having it. Whoever says you can, you're wrong. And then it's these 2 bolts on top, here and here, which you need to take off to release. The anti-roll bar comes off or away. Then you can just take this whole piece off, put the new piece on. So we got all that off yesterday. Really, it's only 3 bolts on the back, 1 bolt up here onto the chassis, and that's either side. And then when you get them off, it's usually attached to the front here. However, because I've done all this work on the front, I hadn't put the bolt back in there, so it came off really easy like that. 1 bolt for the steering rack on the inside. Take that off, right? So what we're doing now is trying to get it all back on again. So after getting the subframe on a jack, I'm now trying to get it in the right place just to make sure when I'm pushing it up, nothing's going to get trapped. This wasn't the easiest job to do on the driveway, and especially on your own. It's constant back and forth. You could do with another pair of eyes, if I'm honest, but we did get there in the end. It is just a game of going round and round, checking where you are, making sure the frame's straight, and then we finally get to a point where we're almost ready to put some bolts in. Right, the main thing now, especially when you're doing it on your own, make sure we don't get any cables in the way. There is a lug just there, locating pin, which this needs to sit on in here. Make sure push past all the wires, fine with that. Nothing else is in the way. We also need to make sure that steering rack up there, you can see, is going into the right place. Same on this side. This here has to go onto a locating pin just up the top there. I have got 3 bolts on either side now, just loosely, but they are on, they're holding it. So we can now just jack that front up. Oh, I seem to be going in. Alright, so these are the 2 bolts for the front side chassis. Now this piece was off when I got the car. So we have got fiberglass kit, but I want to just glue this into a point if I can. And just to let you know which ones we're doing. So there's a bolt up here. You might be able to see it just there at the end of my finger. So we do that. 100 Newton meters plus 90. 3 bolts at the back. You can just see 1, 2, third one over there. All we are going to be left with is these bolts, but I'm only doing these finger tight. These need to be done at ride height, really. Again, after the amount of work that I've done, and I've not done this before, I just wanted to make sure that everything is going on properly. All the bolts were tightened up. I'm now just talking down to spec, just to make sure everything's done, going around in a sequence, not missing any bolts. And they should all be done. Next up was the drop rings. They're attached by 1 bolt to the suspension, 1 bolt to the anti-roll bar. It was connecting the tyre rods to the wheel hub. They're done both sides, ready to go. And then into where the engine bay is, now that everything's up in situ, it's putting both electrical cables back on there, 2 plugs, and then back in. The last thing that I did want to do, it's not going to be perfect, but to at least get it back together again, was the bumper. This bit had snapped off. I gave a bit of super glue on it yesterday just to hold it in place. But now I have some fiberglass, bit of resin. We're going to chuck this on. Sets quite quick. So I glued the body of the car to itself yesterday, the piece that was missing. I'm mixing up some glue now, and we're putting that on the bumper, and then I'll add some fiberglass to it, put a second coat of glue on, and then a second coat of fiberglass, hopefully just to strengthen that corner, because it is on a part which attaches to the wing. It's only 1 bolt, but I just want to make it as strong as possible. And as you see, I've got the first layer on. Just waited for that to dry and then put a second layer on just to give it a little bit more strength. So today is the day that we take the car back for retest. It only failed on washers not working and control arm bushes. I've changed them. It's going back to the garage today. It's going to get its tracking done. Should get signed off on its MOT when I get the bumper on, and we'll get the arch liners in, we'll get the wheels on, I'll drop it down. I was getting a whirring noise, a slight drone between 30 and 40 mile an hour. There's noises. I think there's problems with maybe a wheel bearing. That's a strange noise. So I dropped the car off at the garage this morning, and I've just been to pick it up after having its retest, or so I thought. So it failed on the suspension arms, and the washer wiper's not working. That was just a rubber bung in the bottom of the washer bottle, which I cleaned out, fixed that up, that's sorted. Suspension arms we changed and put them on. And then also, while it was there on the MOT ramp, I wanted the wheels aligning. So they put it on the MOT ramp. They recognised that all the suspension arms been done, everything's working, but they couldn't align the wheels because the inner tie rod and the outer tie rod, where they join, are welded to each other. They tried heat. However, where you put a spanner on the tie rod to tweak it to be able to adjust the steering in and out, they were rounded off. Not by the guys at the garage, they were already rounded off. So I'm left with a car that has front wheels pointing in opposite directions and now needs inner and outer tie rods, near side and offside. and it hasn't passed its MOT. You just couldn't make this stuff up. So that's going to be for the next video. Join me next time when I will get this car back on the road. If you've enjoyed watching this video, please hit the thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.